Okay, everybody, I'm going to just talk a little bit about folds. And we have two kinds of skirts here. We have the one that you did last week, which these are actually called box pleats. And then we have what we're working on today, which is a gathered skirt. So if you think of the waistband, the waistband is going to be an ellipse, right? So here we have the rest of the body coming into the waist here. So now on a gathered skirt, that's the easiest. That's what we're working on now. Now this skirt is called, the dress is called an empire, E-M-P-I-R-E, empire, like empire. Line, and that line is actually up here. It's actually not on the waist. It's actually up right below the breast. So remember that when you're drawing this dress, that's where the gathers are. But let's just talk in general about a gathered skirt. So a gathered skirt would have a waistband, and then enough material here so that you could pull this together. So you've got little tight folds, and then it goes loose, and then you've got little tight ones and it goes loose, little tight ones. Now you don't need to do all of these, you just want to do a few just to indicate what's going on. So here you can see we have some really nice long, and you see how I can use the side of my charcoal to get a softer edge. That is not rendering. Rendering would be like going like this. So this is just a nice soft edge to your drawing. You're going to calculate how far down this is. Now, one thing you want to remember when you're doing the bottom of this is that the bottom is also an ellipse, right? It's a piece of material that's gathered at the waist and then comes down, and it's actually an ellipse, but the way it moves, it's not going to be circular. It's going to have some folds. So it's going to look a little bit like this, but you want to keep in mind that this is actually an ellipse. So you can feel for the hip. So the hip here, the hip point is right out here. The skirt won't go down because the waist is not the same width as the hip. So the hip on a woman is going to go out a little. So you're always going from the waistband out, and this point is where the skirt is going to drop. So it's going to drop from the farthest point out, which will be the hip. So this will be dropping like this. This part over here, we've got more folds over here. Why do we have more folds? Because this is where the knee is. You can just see a little indentation there where the knee is. So there's more action over here. So you're just going to follow a few of these. You're not going to go through and do every little fold. You don't need to, right? You don't need to do all these little folds over here. You need to show the main action of this skirt. And then, what's the main action that's happening here with the bottom of the skirt, with the inert folds, right? Inert, which means dead. So these are called inert folds down here. But you want to remember that they also go around. So this ellipse is going around, and then the skirt comes in at various points on that ellipse. Now this, I don't know if this is in your camera or in my camera. This from last week, you might remember. So these are box folds. So this is, number one, it's a wool fabric. This is a looser fabric, right? A thinner fabric. This is a wool fabric, so it's thicker, stiffer. And so it comes in, there's a pleat here, and then it comes in, there's a pleat here. So there's only about maybe 6 pleats in the whole skirt. But again, the skirt is on the waistband, right? Waistband. And then instead of the gathers, you have a pleat. So a pleat like this, and again, comes around, right? The bottom of the skirt is going to be around, so these pleats are about this distance apart. So she's coming this way. Hip, right? Hip is where the fold drops. The fold's dropping from the hip. This little piece here is where the back of the skirt is peeking around. So this skirt is going in here, coming out, and then across. So it comes in and around. So when you draw the folds, you want to think about what it is you're drawing. They're totally logical. They totally fit the logic of gravity and how the body is stretching underneath the clothing. So here, this leg is coming out, right? So this leg, so it comes down to the hip here, bottom of the hip, and then this leg comes out, pulling the skirt, right? Pushing on the skirt here, and there it creates this little fold. Now the fold looks a little different than we're used to because again, the fabric is really thick and wool. But then it hits the leg. So then it comes down, hits the leg again. So this skirt, if you think about it, the skirt has to wrap over this leg, right? Wraps over the leg, and then it kind of indents in, comes up, hits this pleat here is going to look like this. Come over this, we're just seeing this because this little part is getting hidden. This little part is getting hidden, so we're just seeing this. Over here, it's getting sort of pulled apart. So we are seeing some of this here. But that's basically what's happening on that skirt. It's different from this skirt, but the same principle in terms of gravity's pulling down. Gravity's always pulling down on the fabric. And what's affecting, rather than this skirt just looking like this, like a lampshade, is the body underneath it. So if you honor the body underneath, then you get, you can understand how these folds are being created. So the body is what creates the folds. Otherwise, we would just have a skirt hanging on a hanger, right? Just hanging on a hanger, just straight down, flat, two-dimensional, basically. You put a body in here, suddenly you've got all kinds of other elements pushing out on this skirt, which makes it different from just hanging on a coat hanger.